Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Caribbean Immigrant. I am Kamala Aaron, the host and executive producer of The Caribbean Immigrant, which is a podcast that focuses on telling stories of people who leave the shores of paradise for the hustle of the developed world. And I like to say that we tell it with some rhythm and spice, sugar and melody, and a flavor that is authentically Caribbean. And the person who is pulling up to the Caribbean Immigrant today is someone who I happen to know very well. He is a former university professor, a diplomat. He's currently ambassador and permanent representative of Dominica to the United Nations. And he is Dr. Filbert Aaron. And he has done some extensive research on Eastern Caribbean political systems. And you actually write about this, those pieces of research that you've done on Eastern Caribbean political systems on your website, www.drfilbertaaron.com. And I think that the discussion that we'll have, your perspective will really be interesting to our audience. So, Dr. Filbert Aaron, welcome.
Thank you. Congratulations on your new podcast, The Caribbean Immigrant. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for pulling up. Thank you for pulling up. I normally say that the dress code is super casual, but super fly. And
This is casual. This is casual.
I'm gonna give you a pass, I'll give you a pass if you say that's casual for you at the United Nations. Yeah, okay.
It is casual. I'm joking. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So just for the sake of the audience, I said that I know you very well, and you happen to be my husband.
Yes.
And not
I
just my
have the
husband,
I
but
have the good fortune of being your husband. Yes.
sir, keep talking, sir, keep talking. Um, you are my husband. I was going to say not just my husband, but um, the love of my life and uh, my partner, especially in all things intellectual. You're the most brilliant person I've ever met in my life. So I love
So
your
kind.
perspective. I love talking to you, and we're gonna do what we do. We've done this a long time. This is a different space, a podcast, but we've done this. You used to be the spokesperson for the ruling Dominica Labour Party, and you used to have a weekly appearance on my talk show, the talk show that I hosted on Kyrie FM, The Hang. And so at least 52 times a year, we did this. So
At least.
at least. Yeah, so are you ready?
I am ready. I am totally ready. It is always fun to be with you, on your show, whatever show you're hosting. You're an amazing host. You make your guests very comfortable, Um, and I like to banter with you, intellectually. Yeah. So I'm ready. Absolutely.
It's fun times. Okay. So I'm starting the podcast. Before we get into the subject matter, we'll talk about, the Caribbean immigrant experience. And we'll get to talking about that. But I start the podcasts with 5 rapid fire questions. And I will pose them to you. Okay. So what is your all-time favorite memory of the Caribbean?
It has to be going in search, you know, for fruits, gathering mangoes, gathering pineapples, gathering chapoti. You know what chapoti is?
I do not.
Sapodilla. Gathering those and peeling them and eating them on the spot at Gota, otherwise known as Gutter, the bush behind village of Lagon, where I was born. It has to be. That is just the most amazing thing. Organic fruits in the wild. Look for them, get them, eat them until you're full. That is memory that just doesn't leave at all.
Wow. What is your favorite Caribbean saying?
I think it is easy to say, hard to do. I think easy to say, hard to do. Caribbean people, at least people I know, we love to put down talk and look for action. So easy to say, if somebody comes in and says, I can do this, I can do that, or whatever. So, yeah, easy to say, hard to do. We have a Creole version also, Paola and Bush, which is Paola and Bush, c'est pas mettre. It's how ça fait. Basically, literal translation is, mouth talk, is not the master, is not the chief, is not, it is what you can do, is the action. So that's, I think, typically Caribbean, and I like it.
Who has the best dialect, and give me your best impression of it?
I think it would be Dominica. Dominica has a Creole language, and I think this is the sweetest
Really?
and at the same time the most, powerful muscular language you can find. So my father, I would channel my father. My father would say, okay, de malakwab paka vivadam memtu, which means two male crabs don't live in the same hole.
They
No,
don't live or they can't live?
they don't. They can't, they don't. In other words, in this space, that's this house, there's only one man, there's only one head, and it's me, the father. And you, no matter how old you are, whatever, you boy, you don't even try to step up and be, and challenge my authority. So that is, a strong saying of child rearing, and de malkwa paka vivan mem tu, paka weti a mem tua.
So that's the dialect that you think it's the
It
best?
it is of course in Creole, Dominican Creole, Antillean Creole,
Right.
and which is a language variety that is, I think, as strong and original in our region. And it carries wisdom that is unique. Like, I mean, who else would say something like that to refer to a home as a crab hole, and to refer to masculinity, yeah, in reference to crabs. That is, but my dad would say that. Di malkwab pakaviva memtu. And yeah, there's only one box.
I'm not going to get into why he had to tell you. I'll just leave that alone. Um, but I find this very interesting for someone like you who speaks fluent French, who speaks fluent Spanish. You actually taught French once upon a time, so that you find that Dominican dialect to be the best. That's very interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it is too.
What is your favorite, or what is your go-to Caribbean song? What's your go-to Caribbean song?
I should have a few of them. One of them for sure is Huyon Coco. Huyon Coco by Midnight Groovers, which is
Yes.
a lamentation, which is a lamentation about oppression, about, Puyan Cocoa literally means for one coconut, which refers to being arrested in the 70s. Someone being arrested for collecting, for picking up, for using a dry, meaning a fallen coconut, a coconut on the ground, on usually abandoned estates. But that was a reality, and so that song, which is one of the classic, maybe the number one classic song in Dominica in pop music, Puyon Coco by Midnight Groovers. Pretty sad, but it's done pretty well. I also like Fresh by Gordon Henderson from Zika, Portsmouth.
Listen. I was waiting for a Gordon Henderson song who you call Gordon.
Gordon from Zika.
Gordon. You love you some Gordon Henderson, okay?
From Zika,
So I was waiting for that.
From Zika, Portsmouth, which is the greater community that I am from, and Fresh, has a video that was shot in Portsmouth at the Indian River. But Fresh is a mixture of rock guitars and cadence music, Eastern Caribbean rhythms with is a love song, is an ode to the beauty of the Creole female form, and it is so creative, it is so lyrical. I think it's Gordon's best song, best performance. If you were to choose one song from Gordon, it would have to be Fresh. It's playful, it's joyful, it is, Fresh. So Fresh, and so opposite sides of the spectrum, Chubby and Midnight Groovers crying, for being about oppression, Puyon Coco, and on the other hand, celebration of female form, which is Fresh.
Celebration of the female form, huh?
Yes. Human.
Okay, let's move along. Who is your favorite Caribbean artist now?
I really, again, this is hard. I mean, Caribbean, it just rims, just overflowing with artists. But Gordon has to be in there for sure.
Of course.
Gordon is in there as, that artist. Mighty Sparrow, Calypsonian from Trinidad is also, in there. That is, such, they have long careers. And I like Jeff Joseph, the late Jeff Joseph from St. Joseph, former, lead singer of Gramax. I identified with Jeff. Jeff was, just charismatic, fun. So those guys are, my favorites. Gordon from Zika, Portsmouth, Jeff from St. Joe, and the Sparrow from Trinidad. You're covered with those three. If you have their work, you don't need any other artist because you basically have the range of human emotions. It doesn't matter. You're good.
Wait, because I know you so well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say, you're saying that you would take Gordon, Jeff, and Sparrow, and you'll be covered, and you leave out Prince forever?
Well, you put the restriction on Caribbean.
Oh, so you're just talking Caribbean. Okay.
Caribbean.
Okay,
so I like Prince.
Oh, I'm just clarifying.
I like Prince. Prince is, I like Jimi Hendrix, I like Prince, I like Mick Jagger. But, if you restrict me to Caribbean music,
okay, got it.
I'm gonna take those three and I'll be good. I'll be good.
Okay, so now that we have those 5 what's supposed to be rapid fire questions out of the way, I want to talk about the meat of the matter, as I like to call it, which is Caribbean immigrant, the Caribbean immigrant. As you know, we've had tons of conversations about this over the years, and it's exactly that kind of conversation that has gotten me to where I am, to having a podcast on the Caribbean immigrant, because of that specific lived experience that I think that we have. So I want to talk about the Caribbean immigrant. And again, like I said, you have done so much research on the Eastern Caribbean political system that I think your perspective is going to be interesting for this audience. So the first question that I'll ask is, who are we as a Caribbean immigrant, as a people? Who are we?
I think the Caribbean immigrant occupies a unique space. Especially I'm coming to it from, as a person from the Commonwealth of Dominica. That is largely the Southern Caribbean, right? The Eastern Caribbean, you will have, around us, neighbors of Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, going all the way, Barbados, Trinidad. We are relatively small geographically, and we contribute fewer immigrants to, let us say, the United States, even Europe, let us say in London, England, and we are not as dominant, and so we are fighting for our spaces. So we are not as easily recognized or recognizable as other groups. So, for example, the Jamaicans have done a great. I mean, Jamaica has a presence in music, in symbolism, for example, flags and so forth. That's huge. We are not as well recognized as an immigrant group or as a national group, but we are there. And so we are seen through those kinds of lenses. For example, in the United States where we are, pulled by African-American culture. We are English speaking. We have been watching American culture and following American culture for a while. We are pulled by that. We are pulled by our Caribbeanness. We are pulled by Jamaican culture. I know Dominicans, I hear them who speak Jamaican and so forth. We are pulled in many different directions, but that is who we are. We are, part this, part that, close to this, close to that, close to our African American brothers, our Jamaican neighbors, and so forth. But we are a unique people, still defining ourselves, still trying to project the image of ourselves onto the American stage, onto the world stage. We are a work in progress in that sense.
So, what makes us different? You referenced, African Americans. What makes us different from other Blacks in developed countries? Why shouldn't we be heaped among African Americans, for example?
Well, I love and I respect our African American brothers and sisters.
Absolutely.
Okay, they have a similar experience to us. It's not identical. They're similar to us. Like a few Calypsonians have a song in the past. We came from Africa in the same boat. The same boat stopped in the United States, in Jamaica, in Trinidad, in Antigua, and so forth. We have largely the same experience. Our experience, though, in those small islands, especially, was that, particularly after independence and even before independence, we have been autonomous. We've been running our own affairs to a large extent. And we not only have we been running our own affairs on the political level, socially, we have been providing the main functions in our society. What that means is we have been governors, politics, but we have been the business people. We have been the teachers, the lawyers, the doctors. So we have a sense of ourselves that is different from many other African diaspora cultures and African cultures. So we have that sense. It gives us a kind of militancy. It makes us kind of politically independent. We're always assertive. We are also very confident and proud of who we are, no matter how small our culture or how unrecognized probably our culture might be. So we have that sense. You will find us in any protest that there is, once it's a sizable protest, you will find us there. We're always around political struggle. We're always advocating for some kind of ideal, liberation, equality. That is who we are. That is who we are. And that is something unique about us.
Do we get our due props then, especially when you place us in the developed world?
No, I mean, the developed world, their job is not to give anybody props anyway. But we, we have done things. So, for example, our neighbor St. Lucia has two Nobel Prizes. Nobel Prizes would be in terms of intellectual or what we would call spiritual, cultural world, is the Olympic gold medal. All right. So we have St. Lucia has two Nobel Prizes, and not for peace. One is for economics, one is for poetry. Trinidad down the road has won Nobel Prize in literature for the novelist and memoir writer V.S. Naipaul. You have we have a presence and that has been much bigger than our size would suggest. In Barbados, right there, your good friend Rihanna is doing huge things. But this has always
My
been
favorite of all time.
of all time. But this has always been, our life in the Caribbean, especially even the small Caribbean. People know a lot about Jamaica and what they've done, great stuff. But even in the small Caribbean, again, the small population or contribution to those areas in the world are huge. We make genres of music of our own. We do our politics. We have a unique political system, for example, based on small size. And we have, like I mentioned earlier, huge cultural productions that are recognizable. Okay, so people may not always know that this is from this particular country. Many people don't even know our countries, but our presence is amazing. When I lived in Africa, I studied in Africa. You would hear it. You would hear it there. Music from Dominica, especially you'll hear from other parts of the Caribbean, but you would catch that kind of thing so far without major institutions, but just by its quality being out there. So that's who we are. Proud, militant, that kind of thing.
But are you talking about that in the context of being back in the Caribbean? Is that who we are inside of a developed society?
I think it holds us. I think it holds us, right? We are recognizable. We are recognizable as something different.
Right.
We are recognizable, especially by those who come into contact with us, whether it's by our speech, by our food, by our style, by the way we hustle. We have a sense of joy, right? We have a sense of joy. We have a sense of laughter. We have a sense also of sacrifice, all right? For us in this, especially, in those tiny islands, we don't have mineral resources. We don't have great wealth. We have a culture of recognition of scarcity that we can, that we make. First of all, we're grateful. We're grateful. We appreciate what there is. And as a result, we try to make what they call a dollar out of 10 cents. We try to multiply the little that we have. But, that ties in with, we don't cry for, about certain things. All right. Yeah. If we cry, it's about human things like, oppression and those kinds of system things. That is, if we cry about that, but we don't cry about our lot in life, our fate. All right. We make do with things that we have. We try to just expand our boundaries. That is us. That is unique. There are other people who have a greater sense of melancholy, sadness, and so forth. No, we're big mouths, we're loud, we're brash, we're assertive, we're joyful. That is who we are. That is who we are.
Very interesting. Are we ambitious to think that we should have our own lane especially in a developed society?
Yes, I think it is ambitious. If you look at populations, right? you look at populations and size of populations worldwide, there are many groups of people, larger groups of people who are not known or not known by their products outside of their immediate areas.
Mhm.
But if you look at us in the Caribbean, people know our music. It does not matter where. People know our styles. People wear our styles. People recognize our musical form. People recognize our art. People recognize our literature. People recognize our production. Trinidad has produced, for example, the newest musical instrument in the world, the steel band or steel pan. And so that is the presence that we have. Again, when I studied in West Africa, when I lived in West Africa, do any little research. Somebody is creating, political trouble in West Africa, whether it's Edward Blyden, for example, around Liberia, Sierra Leone, or any one of those countries. You see, you find somebody from the Caribbean, some, maybe obscure to people outside, but somebody with some Caribbean roots is trying to raise some consciousness. Somebody is trying to, raise some kind of flag, push some boundaries. Yeah, we're ambitious, but that's who we are.
What should people know about us as Caribbean immigrants, bar none? What should they know?
I think it will be beneficial for the countries receiving us and even the sending countries to recognize that Caribbean people have a sense of entrepreneurship that is huge. Okay? Again, we don't have the largest markets. We don't have the largest populations. We may not have the biggest corporate entities in the world. But Caribbean people, turn things into bigger things. All right? Make value out of what we have. We add value to things. It is also important, I think, for them to realize that we are very autonomous. We are not dependent. We have a sense of independence, no matter how tiny our countries, our states are, no matter how lacking in mineral resources. We don't have all. Some of us do, but most of us don't. We're not, highly endowed in those areas, but we are struggling. We are working. We are not resting. We have huge ambitions, and we are wanting always to go beyond our limitations. We're always trying to go beyond our limitations. And that is us. That is us as Caribbean people. You can see it. You can see it. Other people can see that. They can consider it abrasive. They can consider it aggressive. They can consider it whatever. But that is what is actually pumping in our veins. That is what's going on with us. We're always trying to do something bigger.
So you say that one of the things that we have above everybody else is that we're able to pull things together. Yeah.
That is absolutely right. And that's what we're doing with our little countries. Okay? We have tiny islands. We have islands that have, physical limitations. We did not create those islands. Those islands were created by, if you want to call it, God through geography. That's what we have. We have countries that were established on an island basis. Dominica, the state on an island. St. Lucia on an island. That's what we have. And what we try to do with it is not look elsewhere, is not try to, take other people's land, is not try to conquer anybody, but use what we have and try to do as much as possible. And we've organized states, for example, which is a high form of organization. We've organized states on those tiny territories, and those states are stable. They are politically stable. You do not get to office in those states through force. For example, a coup. There's only been one successful. It did not last, and it reverted to the original form. Okay? So you don't get to power through force. You get to power through consensus, through persuading people. Even our tiny states, we have that. So we have been stable, we have been durable. Our states are maintaining their form. There are states in the world that their forms change, 30 years after 30 years, they have a new form, they, make drastic changes. We have been maintaining the forms of our state. They're durable for going on 60 years. They're stable, they're durable, and they're effective. We don't send people to the moon, but we get things done.
So for the Caribbean immigrant, for people living in a developed country, how do those things translate?
Yes.
Like
One of the
the stability that you're talking about, that exist in these Caribbean countries.
There are two levels. One, those countries send away confident, mature citizens. Citizens who know what they're about, for example, know their rights, know their purpose, know why they have gone overseas, for example. Okay, you meet immigrants here who will tell you about choices they make. For example, I met someone who decided and told me I wasn't going to spend this amount of money parking my vehicle in a certain place when I can leave my vehicle at home, use the subway system, and save so much money, because that is what this person told me. Because I came here to make money. I came here to gather money to send back to my home. So these stable, durable, and effective little countries are sending away citizens who make good citizens, make good immigrant citizens, because they are focused, they are disciplined, they are hardworking, they're faithful, and so forth. Now, from your question, it is also necessary for those receiving us to see us through the lenses. We always look at people from the lenses of the countries or the places they came from. You may see certain things that, you might not like, but I'll tell you something. When the people who receive us are following their world news or reading whatever they're reading, they won't see us among those countries that are absolutely chaotic. And that reflects on immigrants. People see you, the immigrant from that place, through the lens of that place. And so you won't see us among the chaotic. You won't see us among that group of states in the world. No, you may not hear about us because we're stable, durable, and we're effective. You may not hear about us, which is much better than hearing about us because we are, some dictionary definition of lack of organization and chaos.
So we say that we're different. People say that we're different. We tout the fact that we're different. Why should anyone care? Why should anyone care that we're different?
It is, here, diversity, first of all, diversity is important for a world community. Everybody brings his own strength. And knowing the strength of each group, is very important. You recognize it and you tap it. You bring it into the larger community, the larger human community. So people should care for that reason. What is it that, for example, the Eastern Caribbean or the Caribbean people bring to the world? We bring that. We bring sense of joy, faith, strength, persistence, creativity. We bring also a sense of order in political affairs and so forth. And it matters because it helps to make the communities that we join overseas successful, stable, good overall.
So would that translate to business opportunities and the like, would you say?
It translates into business. There are successful Caribbean business people. However, I go quickly when business is mentioned. We are new at business. We have to recognize not everybody is new. We have business classes in the Caribbean, but we must now fall back on history and recognize that our specialty in the world was not business, but labor. Okay? We are now a post-slave society. Our society was a slave society. For hundreds of years, what we contributed to the world was work, labor, and we have that strength. We are dependable workers. We are really, really hardworking people. That is a handout of, history. So labor, we are now getting into business, and they're successful businesses and creative people, but we're still very new at that. What we are is a very dependable labor force, very disciplined labor force, and that is part of our distinction in the economic side.
Yes. So actually, I'm happy you said that, but I wanted to bring some context. When I say business, I mean business entities, political groups. Should these types of societal groups take note of who we are as Caribbean immigrants in the developed world?
Oh, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. One, we are, first of all, if we just go away from us as labor, a dependable source of work and workers, we are also a market for a number of businesses in a range of areas. We are also a source of great support for political movements. So, for example, in the New York City area, the Caribbean population, the Caribbean immigrant population, is a political force. The numbers are still relatively small, but the influence of that group is strong. And this is the case in Washington, D.C. and particular areas. So yes, corporate entities, the churches know that we are a really strong church group. The churches know that, the political organizations know that, business organizations know that, other organizations know that. And so, yes, absolutely, that's a form of value and distinction that we bring to the communities that we are in as a Caribbean immigrant group.
So wait, this might be a whole separate topic in itself. So if you're saying that these various entities know that, why do we have such a hard time transitioning into the workspace in the developed world?
Well, this is a completely, I'm not saying your question is, going down a different path. No,
Yeah.
I'm saying it's two different worlds.
Mm-hmm.
The world that we're living, right? The world that we are leaving behind is organized completely differently than the world that we are entering. So, for example, leaving Dominica, leaving the Eastern Caribbean, these are tightly knit societies. For example, in our part of the world, there is a form of social capital, a form of knowing other people that we refer to mocking or with anger as pull string.
Yes.
We talk about pull string.
Yes.
Pull string is basically what Americans call networking.
Right.
Okay? A form of social capital, which is knowing people and not necessarily knowing them so intimately that you are in contact with them every day. No, but you are in contact with them or get back into contact with them when you need them for practical purposes. For example, getting a job or, having other entries into things. So we have that. We have that kind of tight form of social capital and other tight forms of social capital in our region. For example, another one is we have a system of godfathers and godmothers, power and and so forth. This is part of your network, right? It's not just somebody bringing you up at first communion or confirmation, just bringing you up
Baptism.
or baptism. No, it's not meant to be just that. It is also somebody in your network that you can lean on when there is a need for some kind of resource. It could be, just taking care of that person. Sit, just hold, your godchild for an hour while I rush into town to get something. So we have, go ahead. You were asking something.
So that's why some people, it's interesting. I never thought of it like that, that it's, your social network. But it makes complete sense. And it's probably one of the reasons why some people duck that responsibility too.
It's also part of the reason why certain people have more demand or more people trying to get them to be power and nene, godmother, godfather than others.
Okay, pause.
It's a
So
strategy.
What you mean is that, for example, there are some people, they have like 10, 15 godchildren.
Yes.
Some people cannot get one for the life of them.
Right.
They just don't have the social capital. And it's a big deal to Caribbean people, social capital.
Yes.
Except we like it when it's working for us.
Well, everybody likes it when it's working for them.
When it's working for someone else, then we call it something else.
Yes. So
we have a problem.
So there is this ambivalence. You're right. There is this ambivalence, especially in politics. This ambivalence towards pull string, which is your tight network coming through for you. So there is this ambivalence. However, these are examples of really tight social networks in the Caribbean, in our societies. Here's the issue. When we migrate from those areas, we leave behind the networks that we have built up. We leave behind not only our mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, but our friends and our power and our nenen and so forth. And we enter into a different society where we do not have those networks. And the networks may be formed in a different way, we have a different form. And so we do not have that entry, we do not have those resources. And when you add, there is a racial element, usually, and other elements, different culture, in which people pay less attention to interpersonal relationships. Right. For example, Caribbean people will comment about not saying good morning or good afternoon to people that you are sitting in the car on the train.
Wait, let's pause so our audience can understand what you just said. Mm-hmm. You're saying that Caribbean people, because of how tightly knit we are, even when we go to the developed world, where people are not as tightly knit, we take umbrage, we take offense, and complain that someone just sat next to us, even on a train, on the job, anywhere, and they did not even say good morning. Like we complain about that.
Yeah, and it also hurts. It's not just a complaint.
Right.
It hurts. I know this one individual whom I understand that his returning to Dominica was in part driven by that loss of social capital. He's entering the train, he says good morning, and nobody answers. Okay? In our region, people say, my eyes fall into your eyes. I say good morning.
Yes.
I do not look away. I do not look down. I do not look up. I say good morning. Our parents teach us to say good morning. You do not have to have a longer conversation, but you acknowledge people, you say good morning. Oh, these are forms of social networking. These are forms of social organization, aspects of social organization that are very important to us.
Yeah.
These are some of the things we lose
Yeah.
when we come to this society, in addition to other structural things that help to explain some of our difficulties. So imagine, for example, you walked, we call it walking on. Imagine you walked on this guy, you walked on. That's the vernacular. Imagine you walked on this guy,
Yes.
yesterday,
Mhm.
and today you go to an interview, and the guy you just walked on yesterday just totally walked on him and did not say good morning, did not acknowledge him. You know, he's the interviewer, and you are the interviewee for a job. What do you do? How do you maneuver?
Yeah.
So these are the kinds of relationships, the kinds of social structures that we carry, and that when we migrate, we suffer a loss. It's not just social, it's psychological.
Mm.
People feel lonely, people feel unloved, people feel
Yeah.
all kinds of pressures
You
as
you
a
feel
result.
you feel out of sorts. It's
You
like
feel you feel out
where
of sorts.
you don't you
Yes,
don't you don't feel the normalcy that you're used to, especially when you come here as a full-grown adult. Like you've known this all your life, and all of a sudden you're completely disconnected.
right. So add this to change in climate. Okay, we have warm weather down there that doesn't change. We don't have
Yes.
seasons. It's 72 degrees all through the year. Add that. So one, you lose your warmth. You come into a place where the seasons change, and especially painful is the cold. Plus the other things, the speed of the society, how impersonal it is. You may take a ride on the subway or other forms of transportation. By the way, they're calling it and boasting it as contactless. You don't
Yes.
have to talk to anybody. You don't have to take anything from anybody. You
Yeah.
face a machine. You put your money in to a machine. It spits out a ticket. You take that ticket. You go through the turnstile. You get onto the train. You talk to nobody. You get out. You go to work. These things have impact, huge impact, social impact, economic impact, psychological impact on us as Caribbean people. That was studied in England, for example, where we were established even earlier on. So those things have huge impact on us. And what I'm trying to explain is what you brought up, how difficult our transition can be, in spite of the fact that we are hardworking. We have the same religion, basically. We are Christian. We are hardworking. We speak English. We have many things that would, you know, lead us into great success. But there are also things that we lose. And so there are barriers also based on culture, based on the good things that we have and that we grew up with in the Caribbean. So they have to be plugged into the mix to explain the difficult transition.
It might be difficult for somebody who is born and raised in one of these so-called developed countries to understand how that what you just explained, the closeness of the society, the warmth of the society, not just physical warmth, but how we say good morning and the like, for them to understand how that can cause people so much stress that they may even choose to go back home.
Absolutely.
How does one understand that?
Some will. In every society, there are people who are not as fit for the society, even if they're from the society.
Right.
There are always people who are not as fit for the society as others. Okay, there are those who are. That's absolutely no problem. They don't need to say hello. They don't need to be greeted. They're doing just fine. But there are some, of course, in addition to people who research these kind of things, people who are in the healing professions and so forth, who understand that there is a different way of being, especially being with other people, a warmer, a closer way that people from those areas who are accustomed to this feel a loss when it's not present, and may even get ill, have all kinds of traumas. You add that your food may be different. So many things change. So that makes which explain the transition and how hard the transition is. That makes is a number of things go into it because of climate, clothing, and the way work is organized. People don't talk at work. People don't talk at work. And in addition, in this country and in
They
developed
not.
societies, not
Yes.
only do they not talk, certain topics are just not broached at all. So,
At
for
all.
example, in the Eastern Caribbean, politics is like sports.
It
Okay,
is a way of life.
it is a way
Okay.
of life.
It
Okay,
is a way of life.
people just
We
break out in.
we participate in politics like people participate in sports. Like,
Absolutely,
that's how we do as Caribbean people.
that's what we do.
And I
And
was saying to
mhm,
someone recently, I was saying to someone at my job recently, we had a new member of the team, and we were talking, and she told me she heard about my background and so forth, and I said, hey, yes, I love politics, but in this society, I keep my mouth shut just like everybody else. So, she was asking me about that, and she's like, tell me what you mean. So I said, let me give you a classic example. Here's what happened recently. Recently, a former president, there was an assassination attempt on a former president of the United States. I came to work. I heard nothing. No one spoke about it. The only reason that I knew this happened was because I saw it on the news, so I know for a fact this happened. I said to her, in the Caribbean, listen, there would be no escaping that topic.
no,
None at all. On every street corner, on every talk show, on the jobs, there will be huge debate. When you get to work, it is the topic of conversation, and everybody is participating, and that's how we do. And it's just the complete opposite
and
here.
with opinion, and that is a form of education. So yeah, somebody would step in and say, oh, you see what happened there last night, huh? I mean, the world is crazy. You don't see, who is that mad person that tried to do that? And everybody chimes in, you know, give their opinion, give their views,
Yes,
and so forth. So
yes,
these forms of organization, the day after elections, presidential elections in this country, you can go to work, you can go to work and nobody mentions the elections, who won or who didn't win. So
all
these kinds of ways
at
of
all.
organizing
Is
life,
that crazy though?
it is for us. It is. It's difficult. And so, really different ways of organizing.
It is. It
Now,
is.
it is happening in classrooms. I taught once in New York City and saw Eastern Caribbean immigrant children, and they're not babies, but high school kids, come into class shell shocked that weeks before they were in the Eastern Caribbean. Now, schooling in the Eastern Caribbean is just like the village. It is intimate, there is deep social connection, there is a lot of play, running around, jokes, laughter, and so forth. And likely this person got their call up, this person got their green card or whatever 3 weeks before their parents are absolutely ecstatic, you should imagine, that they're
Yeah,
going to the States. And
yeah,
this kid, I can see the face of this kid, you know, pull out from their tight-knit high school in which you have friends with whom you do homework, you go over to their parents' home to study, and you talk to your teacher, you call your teacher, all kinds of things. And this person is sitting in a huge high school in New York City where students are aggressive, they are, tough and so forth. And this student is absolutely shell-shocked. So these things are happening, the migration experience at various levels, in churches, in schools, at work, on the streets, in politics, in various organizations, in businesses, in the shops, elsewhere. So, yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big transition. It's a huge transition. Not all of us do it successfully.
What does that mean? Not all of us do it successfully.
Well, it cannot be that every immigrant who comes from the Caribbean and migrates to the developed world or elsewhere succeeds.
Right.
By the way, there are different measures of success.
Yes, I was
It's
going to
been
say.
known that Caribbean people migrate not only for economic reasons, but for cultural reasons, meaning they want to live more freely. They want to live, just put it the other way, they want to avoid the tight-knit society that we're talking about, where
Right.
people will tell you that your clothes are too bright or too long or too short, or did you forget to comb your hair this morning, or did your parents let you out
Un
that way, or
Unsolicited opinion
yes,
is
okay.
what we do best.
Right. So these are downsides, if you wish, possible downsides of the tight-knit society. Okay.
Yes.
But the society is tight-knit, and this is so there are some people who want to avoid certain aspects of that. And so these are not necessarily economic migrants. They're not necessarily leaving because of economic opportunity. As a matter of fact, their jobs and their status may be higher in the Caribbean than the countries to which they come. Okay, they may not be doing it for economic reasons. However, overall, 100% of the Caribbean migrants cannot be successful. So some must be failing. How do we treat that failure? That failure is not highlighted. I mentioned earlier, part of the Caribbean psyche, part of the Caribbean personality is to be stoic, is to be strong, is to be firm, is not to break, is not to cry easily over these kinds of things. You may cry, yes, your parents died, this, that, and that, but you don't generally cry over economic hard time. All
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
if you do, you dry that up real
You
quick.
suck it up real
You
quickly.
suck it up. And if you
Suck
do,
it up.
you don't talk about it.
Right.
So that's not, really advertised in our culture. However, it's happening. It has to be, happening. And, again, that's it. So it's going on. It's not, it's not the main thing that is featured. What is featured instead is people who are making do, people who are succeeding, people who are getting ahead in the immigrant experience.
And this is the reason why I want to talk about all of it. How are we succeeding? How are we failing? What should we do? All of it. I think that we're just not, our stories, our pain points, our passions, our successes, or stresses, to my mind, they're just not amplified sufficiently. And this is one of the reasons why I want to talk about these topics, so that other immigrants from the Caribbean know you're not alone. You're not, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, you're not on an island. You're not isolated. You're not crazy. You are among a group with a shared sort of feeling and experience. And I really want to bring that into the public space, bring it to Front Street, as we say.
Yeah, and there have been groups in the various national communities that have tried to create organizations for that. So in Dominica, for example, in the Dominican community, there is a Dominican Overseas Organizations and others,
Right.
and other countries also have. And these are forms of networking. These are forms of staying together as Dominicans, being in contact with people who are similar to you. There are organizations like that, but the effort that you are making is absolutely necessary through this forum so that people can share, people can talk, people can listen to other people and the struggles that they go through, because especially the struggles are not highlighted. And I was going to say you, not meaning you, the host, But the Caribbean immigrant, definitely in the small Caribbean, when you're going through your hard time in the receiving country, let us say in the United States, if you are visibly going through hard time, when you see somebody who might recognize you, you better brace up. You better brace up, because I know I know anecdotal I have anecdotal examples of of migrants in the United States whose parents call them because somebody saw them not looking their best in New York and called that person's parents immediately in Dominica and said, what is going on with so and so? Because I saw that, so and so looking in such and such a way.
Yes.
So those kinds of things, and that forms part of the storytelling. So that's part of the task that you have to break through. I have no doubt you'll succeed with it, and you're succeeding with it. But that's part of the challenge, to get migrants to talk, our Caribbean migrants to talk, not only about the successes, not only about those who make millions, not only about those who go to Harvard, not only about those who become lawyers and doctors and engineers, but those who stumble, and those who fail, and those who fell on hard time, and so forth. That kind of dialogue definitely needs to be opened up, so that we all may take courage and learn from each other in order to move on more swiftly. Sure.
Well, it's going to take some adjusting too, because like you said, if because of how close-knit we are, because some people also they leave the Caribbean, pretty well known. For example, they want to put only their best face out.
They have to.
Because, if people back home get the word that you left your country and you are, in a developed country and you are not doing that well, it becomes a topic of conversation, even not publicly, but among the society in small pockets.
And sometimes
and
publicly.
who wants that?
And there's a structure for it. The narrative structure is, look at so and so.
Yes.
When they were here, they were in such and such a position.
Yes.
They left such and such a position and went to New York, Boston, Washington, D.C. And do you know what they're doing? They're doing such and such a job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So that structure exists, that narrative structure. You can hear it all the time in the Caribbean. People are, taking stock of these developments and telling the stories that way. It's a disciplining. It's a form of disciplining. It's a form of social control. It's a form of keeping.
Tell me about that. What do you mean, social control?
Yes. So we are big on social control. Is basically forms of regulating, putting pressure on behaviors. Okay. Every society has it. We use different tactics. In our region, talk is a major form, a major tool of social control. People will talk about you.
Right.
They will talk about you either directly to you, or they may cast aspersions. They may, they will throw it. We call it, Bob Marley might call it throwing corn.
Yes.
In Dominica, we call it throwing fion. That is to make a certain statement not directly at the person. So, for example, someone will be walking by and they might just say, look at how the world has, let's say, look at how the world is. Okay? There are people who, when they were young, they were wealthy, but time has changed so much that now they have, they hit hard times like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
They did not call a name, which is what they will tell you if you respond. Did I call your name? You know, so we have various structures, narrative and other talk structures for controlling behavior. And
Got
part
it.
of it, you know, it definitely deals with the immigrant experience. I mean,
Yeah.
immigrants, those who have left, are a constant topic of conversation back home.
Yes.
Constant, you
Constant.
know,
Yeah.
in the same way as those who have migrated keep track
Yes.
of those they left behind, because
Yes.
that is the measure, okay?
Yes.
That is the standard by which we who have left judge our failure or our success. And
Mm-hmm.
the same thing for those who have, stayed back, those who have stayed home. They are also mindful of these people who are trying to get ahead of them. And they want to make sure that, they don't fall too far behind. That causes conflict sometimes among when there's contact, diaspora community contact, whether it's those who have stayed behind are visiting temporarily, or
Right.
those who have gone are visiting temporarily or have returned permanently, visiting for vacation, for national celebrations, and so forth. So for example, anecdotally, there are cases of people who have to max out their cards, their credit cards, when
Oh,
when when
God.
returning for vacation because they know they are under scrutiny, that they have to be in tip-top shape. They have to look, they have to look real fly. Otherwise, they will be the topic of tough conversations about how
Oh,
well they're
God.
doing and not doing. So the immigrant experience, basically what we're saying is the immigrant experience is part and parcel of Eastern Caribbean and Caribbean life. The immigrant experience, whether it is by leaving, whether it is by sending material things back to the Caribbean, whether it's being the subject of conversation, whether it is on returning for vacation, whether it is in investing, whether it is in banking your earnings back there, the immigrant experience is part and parcel of Caribbean life. And the political systems, the outside political system, is tightly wound up for that reason with the political systems back in the Caribbean.
I'm going to leave it right there for now. Dr. Philbert Aaron, you are a PhD in uh, leadership as well as um, education and policy. And you now sit as the permanent representative and ambassador of Dominica to the United Nations. You're talking to me from your office in New York City. I thank you for your time. I look forward to all of the discussions that we may have as we explore the Caribbean immigrant on this platform.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you. I am Kamala Aaron. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.